Hello there, welcome to episode 318 of Expat Property Story, which I'm recording on the final day of what I've been pretentiously calling my UK property tour, which has seen me crisscross the country and taken me across well over half the counties in England. But unfortunately, for this time at least, not into Wales or Scotland, so maybe I should call it my England property tour. I'll be talking a little more about who I've met and what I've seen in the past month and how it might be able to help you. But on today's show, I'm focusing on Tuesday, July the 28th, which is when I met up with Darren McNeill from our sponsors FMP in the postcode BB4, which contains the inaccurately named Rawtenstall, a town just 15 miles north of Manchester and 22 miles east of Preston, Lancashire.
We met there. I live there at the moment. And then we headed over to Darwin through Accrington, and then we jumped on the M65 and had a nice little tour of Darwin.
So let's start in Rawtenstall. Do you have many clients who have properties in Rawtenstall or many tenants in Rawtenstall?
At the moment, I think we manage around 6 or 7, and I own 2 myself, which I purchased way back in 2018.
Is it fair to say it's one of the more upmarket parts of the M65 corridor?
Yes, most definitely. It's at the end of the M66, which goes directly to Manchester. The connectivity is so good. You're finding that people are moving out from the greater Manchester area into Rawtenstall. The house prices have just skyrocketed.
Now, I've seen so much in the last month that it all seems to blur into one, but I do remember it had a nice cobblestone high street. Is that right?
That's the one, yeah. The lovely high street with posh soap shops and cafes and delicatessens and all that, all the middle class sort of shops that you would expect in a decent area.
But you were telling me that, say, 4, 5, 6 years ago, it wasn't like that at all. I guess that kind of shows how the area as a whole has kind of moved upward.
Yeah, and I think that applies literally to sort of all the towns along the 65. Obviously, 5, 6, 7 years ago, Rawtenstall didn't have the prices that it currently has. It's had a huge amount of investment in it. And I think the same goes again for the likes of Darwin. That's had huge investment over the last 5 years. The area's transformed. The same with Accrington, the same with Burnley. All the areas have just had so much focus and investment on them. It's been really, really positive.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember that when we went to Darwin, there was quite a lot of new build estates going up. Is that right?
No, that with Darwin. So there's been absolutely huge investment from the major builders. I think off the top of my head, there's 6 major builders that are building in Darwin. And I think you mentioned when we're out driving, the amount of research these developers, before they start putting a shovel in the ground, so that obviously they've seen something about Darwin, which means it's worth them obviously spending however much money they do on these huge housing estates. So they obviously saw something before everyone else. And now 2026, we're now seeing how positive those areas now are.
And I think you've said on previous episodes that feeds into the market that you're looking at. So the typical price point for a new build on one of those estates would be 200k plus, right?
I mentioned to you, we're actually buying one ourselves in Darwin at 280. And that was one of the cheapest that they had available. I think the majority of the properties that they try and focus on building are more in your 300,000 upwards mark.
So you would be buying that because it's kind of like a dream residential property for you, but that's not such a good investment for buy-to-let, is it? Because generally the prices that they fix them at tend to decrease over the following 10 years.
Yeah, well, from an investment side, I would never touch anything in that sort of price range. I live by the 125 and under. I think that is just the sweet spot where you are getting maximum returns. And it's something I've mentioned to you before, no one is building these starter homes because they're just too expensive. We've got a very small amount of these sort of lower cost houses. Everyone can afford them.
So the demand is high.
The demand is huge. People really forget that. Obviously, you see a lot of the negativity in the press and people can't afford to buy the first homes and all the rest of it. But, that's down south. That's not where we are. You can have a regular job and still afford to buy a home. So the demand for the properties that I sort of work with is absolutely huge.
So after Darwin, where did we go again?
So we jumped on the M65 corridor And I had that little bet to you saying that we would get to Burnley within 20 minutes. And I think it was about 18. I wanted to show you just how close all the towns are with each other. So Darwin is pretty much at one end of the corridor. Burnley is at the opposite. That means that you can live in one town and work in another town, and your commute is just nothing significant.
Perhaps the most striking thing I remember from our drive along the M65 was the number of distribution centres on either side of the motorway.
Everything now people buy online. So those purchases, they're not in your traditional high street shops. They're now in these sort of big sheds at the side of motorways, because obviously everything needs to be sent out. And the benefit of, obviously, again, where we are and we operate, land is cheap. So, it costs significantly less to build one of these big sheds in Burnley than it will do near central Manchester. And we've got this motorway network which still allows these companies to be able to still access all the major cities.
And then I think we ended up pretty much in Burnley, didn't we?
Yeah, you wanted to have a nice look at Burnley, didn't you?
And I think you learnt something. There's more to this story. Listen to the full episode now. You won't want to miss it.